Hello everyone, so we got an envelope and a package in the mail today. So let's see what's inside. Let's start with the envelope first. It's from Shelton, Washington. Alright, nice in this paper here. It's got a bunch of little tape. I think we can get that off easily. Maybe I'll just tear the paper, it doesn't really matter. Alright, I can see what they are. Not going to tell though until I show them. Alright, Lebanon. Got two in here, circulated from 1986. We got 5 pounds. And we got 10 pounds. Put them back in the plastic until I get them in the binder. Nice and safe. And next we got this one here. This one is actually pretty close to where I live. I live in St. Pete in Pinellas County. This came from Land O'Lakes in, I think, Pasco County. I actually don't know where that is. It's a lot. How do you think I know that by now? Max strength. This is max strength. I might have trouble getting it open. Right, we got paper and cardboard. It's nice and packaged. This tape looks like it'll be easier to get off since it's in larger pieces. Not as easy as I thought. At least it's not like those little pieces on the first one. Oh, there we go. Pulled it in the middle. It came off nice. Okay. Pile them all up over here for the garbage later. Alright, cardboard's off, and we got even more. We got an envelope now, which is also taped. Let's put a little thank you on the front. Very nice. Envelope's not coming open as cleanly as I thought it would. Alright. Oh, nice. Alright. Oh, look, it's the same type of sleeve again that I got. We got 2 Ottoman Empire piastres. We got 1 piastre and 2.5 piastres from 1916 and 1917. Well, 1916 and 1917. I don't really think the exact years are going to be marked on here. Look at these. And the script on here is Arabic, but the language is actually Turkish, because they used to write Turkish in the Arabic script before the 1920s. These are really neat. And I have a personal connection to these, so I'll be sharing that later once I get everything in the binder though. Alright, so first in we got the 2 new Lebanese pounds. These are from the same issue as this 1 pound. We got 1 pound, 5 pounds, and then 10 pounds. 3 in a row from the same issue, 1986. And we see the backs here. We got the buildings on the front. We got ruins on this one. It would look like ancient something there. And we got pretty neat on the back. We got the cave up here that we covered earlier. Here we got a bridge, and it looks like some little rocks in the Mediterranean. Very nice. When we look on New Mist, we'll be able to figure out where these locations are. Here we got the 2 Ottoman piastres in their own little new page here between Oman and Pakistan. Oman was actually the only ever O country that I had before getting these. And as we can see, it's pretty simple on the front. Typical Islamic geometric type designs. And on the back, we got, the backs are kind of faded, so it's hard to see. We got, looks like a little world scene here. And a riverfront. Interesting. On New Mist, I think they'll probably say where these are.
Now, this is let's start here with the Lebanese pounds. And first, let's start with the 5 pound, or as they're sometimes called, the 5 livre, as the Lebanese also use the French language alongside Arabic. And this banknote was issued from 1964 to 1986, 5 Lebanese pounds equaling a very small amount of US dollars. And on the front we can see the National Museum in Beirut, and on the back is a bridge over the river Kalb. And it was printed by Thomas de la Rue and Company, a British company based out of London. And this banknote isn't particularly rare. The 1964 uncirculated does go for 15, but that's not really that high in comparison to a lot of others. This one is a relatively common one. The uncirculated is only $1. And let's see. As we can see here, this is the National Museum in Beirut, and it's located pretty close to the city center. And where you're looking at on the banknote, you can see the front street elevation of the museum. It looks like it's right near a racetrack, and I'm guessing that parking lot across the way is probably used for the National Museum, as well as what appears to be another museum, the MIM Mineral Museum, which is right nearby. Now, the image might have looked a little bit odd earlier because of the angle the satellite was taken at. I have it adjusted here to kind of give you a more better look. You can kind of see the buildings better now. Let's turn on Street View and see if we can get any inside looks. Oh, we got a full walkthrough. Let's drop ourselves a random spot here. All right. Oh, we're on the upper floor. Very nice. Got a lot of artifacts in the glass cases. So very nice building. It's got a kind of that Art Deco look to it. And I really like the open floor plan they've got going on here. It looks really nice. I like how they let you kind of like walk around the artifacts. Oh, we also got this here. Very interesting. Now let's look at the history of this museum itself. So the National Museum of Beirut, the principal museum of archaeology in Lebanon, was established in 1937, and the museum opened in 1942. And it's built in the Egyptian Revival architectural style. And this museum was actually right on the front lines during the Lebanese Civil War in 1975. And it's undergone some renovation and has around 1,300 artifacts from the prehistoric times of Lebanon all the way up to the early Mamluk period during the medieval period. Very interesting. Now, I wasn't able to identify the bridge sewn on the back of that banknote, although I do believe that it is in this valley you can see here. spanning from the Jeda Grotto, the cave we saw on the £1 banknote, all the way up to Nahr el Kalb, which is what the Kalb River is called in Arabic, which is the local language in Lebanon. And there's a couple bridges on this river here, so I wasn't able to locate exactly which one this is, although it does appear to be a more historic one. Now, on second thought, it turns out I actually have found this bridge. I'm using these images posted onto Wikimedia Commons. It is known as the Nahr al Kalb Bridge. It's very historic. In fact, there is a Latin inscription on the nearby cliff, and it says it was built by Marcus Aurelius in the 2nd century. So this is a Roman bridge, and this bridge is very historical. So it's actually, I just put in Nahr al Kalb Bridge onto Google Maps, and it brought me right to it. It turns out it's pretty close to the mouth of the Kalb River in the Nahr al Kalb town area. I don't really know. It might just be like a census area, since I can't really see much of like a centralized settlement in this area. It mostly looks like suburbs, but yeah, you can see this is a historic bridge dating back to the Roman period, and it's very close to the coast. Let's turn on Street View again, see if we can get some good looks at it. Or what this is. Oh, maybe we can walk over it. Why isn't that working? Alright, there we got a close-up look from the, got a little parking lot so everyone can come and see it. Very nice. And as we can see, it is in a very steep valley. We got the cliffs up here, and it's very close to the coast, but you wouldn't really be able to tell just looking at this because of the terrain. The terrain makes it a bit hard to tell. Next up, we got the 10 pounds or 10 livres, also issued from 1964 to 1986. Don't have exchange rate here, although considering the 5 pound didn't look very good, I don't know how much better this one would be. And interesting, we got another set of recognizable landmarks. We have the ruins of Anjar on the front and Pigeons Rock in Beirut on the back. And once again, this isn't a very common banknote. This one is even more common than the previous one, as the highest price you get for it is $10 for an uncirculated from 1974. The 1964, not even $1. And the 1986 one, once again, the one I have, pretty common one, only $1.10 for an uncirculated. And not much more information here, so I decided to look for the ruins of Anjar. And here is the town of Anjar next to the ruins, and it's actually pretty close to the border with Syria, as you can see here. And there's a little modern settlement, but let's turn on Street View and see if we can get a good look at the ruins nearby. If I can find them. Let me reconfigure the search for this. So it turns out the ruins are actually right in the middle of the settlement. Well, they're more on the edge considering it's a rural area, but they're so close to a lot of the houses, I just say, you know, they're kind of in the middle of it. And since we got a few photos here, let's drop in and see if we can get a closer look. Alright, we can see a lot of those distinctive archways. This wall is very well preserved right here. So we got some columns on the ground too. And this looks, it's just really the old walls, which is all generally you see left, but a lot of this looks pretty well preserved. We got some of the columns are still standing up. This wall right here is very well preserved. I think this actually might be what's on the banknote. So a little searching here, we can see that these ruins date to the Umayyad period, during the very early Islamic period, right after, it says here, right after Muhammad died. And so that's kind of why a lot of the architecture you see here looks very Islamic looking. And Anjar, the name means unresolved or running river. Interesting name. And it says here that, if you look for the history of it, it was very thinly settled until 1939. and it was resettled through Armenian refugees from Muzadag in Turkey, escaping the aftermath of the Armenian genocide. And you can see it actually renamed the neighborhoods after the villages. And a lot of people see here, a lot of them left after the Civil War to like Europe, Canada, and the US. But today they're a very well-off city. They have low crime, not a lot of air pollution, and pretty high living standards. And during the COVID pandemic, the village, they put lockdown measures, set an example for the rest of Lebanon again. And in November 2024, UNESCO gave the village enhanced protection to protect the archaeological artifacts there from military damage. Now, on the back of that banknote is another landmark by the name of Pigeons Rock, or Al Roche Rocks. And they're pretty close to, they're actually right basically in the middle of the city of Beirut. As we can see here, the little neighborhood right next door is actually named after them. If we zoom in here, we can see they're right at the cliff. And let's turn on some street view. We got little photo bubbles here. Let's check one of these. Alright, so we got the cafe, Bayrock Cafe, and it's right overlooking the two little rocks here, as they can be seen on the banknote. And this is a very picturesque little waterfront scene here. It looks very nice. And a little background on the neighborhood. Neighborhood's got upscale apartment buildings, numerous restaurant and cliffsides cafes, just like the one that I shown there on the Avenue de Paris. And the name is now Arabic sounding, but actually comes from the French word for rock, rocher. And there's a lot of archaeological stuff here, actually, as the American University in Beirut has discovered. And it's very interesting to see the little islands that these Middle Eastern countries have on their Levantine coast with the Mediterranean. Now on to the Ottoman banknotes. First we have the 1 piastre from 1916, or as it's known in the Islamic calendar, 1332, or Rumi calendar. Guessing that's the Muslim calendar. Please tell me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. And it's worth 1 piastre, or as it's referred to here, 1 kurush, which I'm guessing is the Turkish equivalent term. And it was issued by what appears to be the last sultan of the Ottomans, Mehmet V. Resat. I don't know how to pronounce his last name there. And this banknote isn't common, but it's not particularly rare either. As we can see, the uncirculated only goes for around $32. And unfortunately, we don't really know what the image on the back is of. If it's an actual location, or maybe it's just an idea location, something similar to something you'd probably see. And if we go over, we can see the 2.5 piastre here. Now looking at the 2.5 piastre from the same issue, 1916, we can actually see that the location on the back is identified. It looks like it's roughly around the same value as the previous one. It's the Dardanelles. And considering the quality of the image, it could be a little hard to tell. Also, I don't think a lot of people know the Dardanelles from that angle. And oh, I thought I pulled them up here. Let me do that. Dardanelles. Dardanelles Strait. And it's this strait here between the main Turkish peninsula, Anatolia, and this little peninsula here, which I don't know the name of. And as you can see, it's known as Kana Canal, or however it's pronounced. You got a little town called Kana Canal, and I believe that the site of ancient Troy is located along this area here. Let me look for that. Troy. Alright, Troy Museum. And I'm guessing the ruins are like right nearby. Oh yeah, there they are right there. They're right near this little town here. Pretty close to the Dardanelles opening. And that's actually very interesting because you always hear about Troy, but you never really hear about the Dardanelles Strait. Now, as you can see here, the Dardanelles are shown a bit of an aerial angle, and I've repositioned the map to try and reflect this now. Google doesn't let you go as close to the ground as they're aerially showing on the banknote, but this is pretty close to the angle we're getting, and we can see that Troy is a little inland, but it's basically about the same distance from the Aegean Sea and the Dardanelles. So it's a pretty strategic spot considering you have to go through the Dardanelles to get to Istanbul, formerly Constantinople, and the Black Sea, where other places like Crimea are located. Now, interesting here is the use of an Arabic script. Now, a lot of people today know Turkish as a Latinized language. It uses a Latin-derived alphabet. But what a lot of people don't know is that Ottoman Turkish was with its own alphabet. Modern Turkish, I guess, is kind of considered separate. It was an Arabic-derived alphabet, as you can see right here. And it was used from 1299 to 1928, so a very long time, but it ended up getting replaced with the Turkish alphabet, which is written in a Latin script very recently. And interestingly, the new Turkish alphabet has been used for the Latinization of other Turkic languages like Azerbaijani or Azeri, Turkmen, and Kazakh, and I'm theorizing Uzbek, a language that I covered in another recent video, is probably using that same model. Now you may be wondering what my connection to these two banknotes from the Ottoman Empire is. And let me describe myself a little bit first. You see, nationality, I'm American. I'm culturally American. I've spent my whole life in the United States. Now, my ethnicity, I'm mostly Portuguese, with some Greek, Armenian, and other ancestries. And Portuguese, Greek, and Armenian being the largest of the three. And a lot of people, when you think of Greeks, you think of Greece, which is pretty obvious, that's where most of the Greeks live. That's where the Greeks came from. But what a lot of people don't seem to know or don't seem to talk about today is that there were actually a lot of Greeks that lived in what is now Turkey, the Turkish peninsula, Anatolia. And a lot of people know about, you probably heard about a lot of like the Greek ruins there, right? Like Smyrna, aka Izmir, Constantinople, Istanbul, that place. But it goes far beyond that. You see, in the region of Cappadocia, there is a Greek minority. Well, there was a Greek minority. I don't think almost any of them live there now. And Greek used to be the lingua franca of the region, originating from probably starting in like actually it became the lingua franca 5th century AD, like early Byzantine period. I don't know exactly when it would have arrived though. Now, if you can't tell where this is going by what I've said previously, my Greek ancestry is indeed Cappadocian Greek, from the Cappadocia region, which is actually quite far inland in the eastern part of Anatolia. And there was a Greek minority here for thousands of years. They were a very persistent minority. Greek was the majority language from the 5th century onwards during the early Byzantine period, although it was replaced a few hundred years later by Turkish when the Ottomans took over, and the area ended up becoming majority Turkish. However, there was a very persistent Greek minority for a very long time. Now, the Ottoman Empire did not treat its Greek minority well at all. The civilians, from my understanding, tended to get along on like a personal level, but the government really did not look kindly at the Greek minority. And a lot of what happened is during the First World War, the Ottoman government began killing a lot of its Christian subjects, and my Cappadocian Greek ancestors would have been among those subjects. However, in 1914, when World War I broke out, they chose to leave the country. Now, my great-grandfather was already married to my great-grandmother at this time. My great-grandmother was taking care of his parents, so she stayed behind and he immigrated to the United States. Now they came from this city here, Nevsa here, which is actually a pretty well-known spot for its cliff dwellings as well as hot air balloons. And my great-grandfather left Nevsa here, and he went along with a few of his male siblings, I believe, to the United States. He ended up serving with the U.S. military during World War I and was exposed to mustard gas near a place in France called Nancy. It's a French word, so I want to pronounce it like the name, but I don't know if that's really how it's pronounced. And they tried to send a letter over here to Ottoman country to try and get in contact with his wife, my great-grandmother. And the thing is, it was in English because, of course, it's coming from the U.S. And there, of course, as you can probably expect, not a lot of people here speak English. The majority language is Turkish, and a lot of the Greeks, they speak the Greek too. And there was one person who the family knew who could speak English. Now, unfortunately, there was a translation error. See, the letter just said, he got mustard gas, so he's in the hospital. We had to take him off the front lines. But unfortunately, this person who supposedly could speak English mistranslated it, and they thought he was killed at first. Now, luckily, that got cleared up very quickly, and she ended up later moving to the United States and joining him after the end of the war, and they had several children, including my grandfather. Here is the city of Nancy in France. I'll admit, I've actually never looked at it before. It's right on this little river here. And now back to my family history. Now my ancestors, they were lucky. They got out early right when World War I opened up. And the Ottomans were on the Central Powers of that war, which was essentially the World War I equivalent to the Axis powers. During the Central Powers, it was Germany and Austria-Hungary. I think there might be like a few others, but those were like them and the Ottomans. They were like the major three. And what happened is one of the Allied powers up until very close to the end of the war were the Russians. Now, the Russians had to leave just before the war ended because they had the revolution in 1918, but they were an active part of the war up until then. And there were large Greek and Armenian minorities living in Anatolia at the time, which was still under Ottoman rule. And what happened the Ottomans began basically they began conscripting everyone, and they began conducting mass killings of their Christian subjects, and thousands of people were killed. It's been recognized today as the Greek genocide and the Armenian genocide, and as a result, there are no Greeks and very few Armenians left in this region. Now, my ancestors were lucky, and they got out early, but unfortunately, a lot of people were not as fortunate as them. Now, to specifically explain why I feel a connection to these two banknotes, it's because of my ancestors' experience with Ottoman rule. Now, they, as a Greek minority, they were oppressed, and they were in a minority that was not viewed favorably by the Ottoman government. And I've collected a lot of banknotes from not so good countries, like my Serbian banknotes from when they were a puppet state of Nazi Germany, my Algerian francs when Algeria was under French colonial rule, which was very bad for the native Algerians. And I understand the histories of those, and it's kind of unfortunate the banknotes have good design to them, considering the governments that made them. And these banknotes are much the same, knowing what the Ottomans did. And it's personal for me because of what happened to my Greek ancestors. And it's very interesting to have these historical artifacts from that time period. And it sort of gives you an understanding to see what their lives were like. Now, another one of my great-grandmothers, my grandmother's mother, was Armenian. I pulled up my Armenian banknote just for show here. And she was adopted by an English family and raised in London. And now we don't know exactly where she was born, but I saw on an old document of one of my grandmother's marriages is that she claims that her mother was born in Turkey. Now, assuming that this is true, we don't really know the exact details on that. She was also very lucky because of the As we know, there was the Greek genocide and the Armenian genocide, and she was just a child at the time, so she would have definitely have been a victim had she not been rescued. So I can connect to it not from so through that I can connect to the banknotes not just through my Greek ancestry, but possibly my Armenian ancestry as well.
Now, one final note here. I should note that these Ottoman banknotes are much smaller than I thought they'd be. So when I saw them on eBay, they had the nice scans of them, which is real close. And I usually don't look at the size of banknotes when I'm getting them because, I mean, that doesn't really matter. I'm more interested in like the condition and if it's something new to my collection. So I just ordered them. I didn't know what the size was. I thought I might have to use one of the special 2 pocket pages for these, but they're actually tiny. Actually, really small. I didn't even realize that. They looked pretty big in the pictures, so that was a surprise. Well, it looks like that's all for today. Thanks for watching. I was really glad that these banknotes came because because I have a personal connection to them through my family history. Let me know in the comments what you think about the banknotes. And like if you like the video, subscribe if you like some of my videos, or all of them. Doesn't really matter. And once again, thanks for watching.